Hello there. Welcome to my campfire. My name is Serafin, the Midnight Bard, and I travel from place to place, seeking the strange, the bizarre, and the unexplained. They say evil prevails when good men do nothing. Greed, injustice, and violence can only go as far as good people will permit. But what of evil that they can do nothing about? The things that go bump in the night, terrors born of nightmares. All the good in the world can do little when it can neither see nor touch these malevolent entities. Well, every so often, good people are gifted with the means to fight back. Evil beware, or you might end up on the receiving end of the ExorFist.
There was something about the day that felt like a warning. The forecast had called for clear skies, but the skies had grown a shade of gray so dark that it almost looked like nighttime. My Uber driver complained about it more than a few times.
Damn, weatherman. I could do a better job telling the forecast by just keeping my fucking eyes open,
he said, his tone oozing venom.
One look outside says it's 100% chance of rain today, Dallasites. Grab a damn umbrella.
Rain came down in a torrent so heavy that the Uber's windshield wipers at full speed did little to help with visibility. I felt a little bad about having called one. I tried to rationalize that if it hadn't been me, then someone else would have called. Though that did little to alleviate my guilt. The driver pulled over to the old house and his GPS dinged a little jingle, announcing our arrival at the programmed address. He squinted past the deluge, trying to get a good look at the place as if trying to see past a mirage.
You sure you got the right address, bud?
He asked.
This place looks more abandoned than my dreams of becoming a country singer.
Even through the rain, I could tell the old house had probably not seen better days for at least 2 decades. The place looked so surreal through the torrent of water and the foggy window that it might have been more at home in some dark and hazy dream. I felt myself tremble slightly and realized that my fingers were like ice.
Hey, bud.
I came to my senses and found the driver staring at me with the look of concern reserved for people who talk to themselves out loud in different voices on the bus. Yes, I smiled. This is the right place. I just inherited it from my uncle. He winced visibly at my lie.
The hell you do to piss your uncle off so bad that he left you that in his will?
Oh, come on, I said. The place ain't so bad. A new roof, a little paint, some new lighting fixtures. There was a loud crash of thunder before I could finish my thought.
Yeah, said the driver in a sarcastic chuckle. Maybe get a priest to come down and do a blessing while you're at it.
I laughed dryly. You have no idea. I got out of the car and thanked the driver. He tried to offer me a ride to the nearest hotel instead, on the house. I think he must have felt as guilty leaving me at the old house as I had in asking him to bring me to it in the middle of the storm. I wanted to take him up on the offer more than he could know, but I had work to do. He waited a solid minute before driving away. I stood in the rain for a while longer after he had gone. I recalled the woman who had walked into my studio 3 days prior. It had been just a little after sunset. The night had not yet reached the zenith of its darkness, and the heat of the Texas sun lingered, leaving it the perfect time to pull out the garden chair and sit out in the patio. It had been something of a long day, so I decided to do just that. I stepped out onto the gravel lot I called a parking area in front of my business with a folding chair and a cold bottle of beer. I had just finished popping the cap off the bottle when I saw her pull into the parking lot. The shiny black sedan was a luxury model worth more than I make in a year. I hoped, with any luck, this person could bring me some desperately needed business. She stepped out of her car, one gorgeous leg at a time, and I suddenly became very attentive. The woman was tall and walked with a timid gait that seemed at odds with her business power outfit. She looked like she was ready to conquer Wall Street, but her body language looked like she was afraid of her own shadow. It wasn't until she was close enough for me to look her in the eye that I knew why she had come to see me. I took a huge, deep breath, and I put on the mask that I always did when trying to dodge situations like the one this woman had undoubtedly brought me.
Cody Walsh?
She asked before I could say anything. Hi. Yes, welcome to Walsh MMA. How can I help you? She hesitated, as they often did. Sorry, I said. Where are my manners? Please come in. I held the door open to the studio, allowing the lady to walk in before me. She struggled to find her footing for a second as she stepped onto the martial arts mats with her high-heeled shoes. So, Miss...
Herman.
She said timidly.
Beatrix Herman.
All right. Miss Herman. Are you looking to take some martial arts lessons?
No,
She said. Something moved behind her eyes, like a shadow reflected on them. Lessons for your kids, then?
I don't have any kids.
The shadow moved again, and I could see it more clearly. All right, I said, letting an awkward silence fall between us for a moment. Well, I have a few programs for students of all ages and of any skill levels. I moved to my desk, where a stack of brochures leaned with the threat of falling with the smallest of provocations. Her voice was desperate, and escaped her almost as a cry of pain.
I was told that you might be able to help me with a problem I'm having.
I'd be happy to, I said. Just let me know what you're interested in learning, and I can get you set up.
No,
She said. I could see tears streaming down her face, leaving long trails of mascara on her cheeks.
Mr. Walsh, I don't know where else to turn. I'm so scared, and I can't sleep because every time I close my eyes, I see...
She started to hyperventilate as she talked, and attempted to continue talking as if she was afraid that if she did not say what needed to be said now, then she never would. I opened the folding chair that was still in my hands and helped her to have a seat before running to the drinking fountain and filling up a foam cup to the top and bringing it back to her. After 15 minutes of deep breaths and false starts, as well as another 2 cups of water, Beatrice Herman spoke up once more.
I've heard tell, Mr. Walsh, that you have helped people afflicted by spirits.
The word came out as a whisper, like she thought that saying it would make it worse. I always wondered how the heck people kept finding out about my work. It's not like I went out of my way to advertise for Cody Walsh, amateur exorcist, and yet people always seemed to find out. Meanwhile, I did go out of my way to advertise for mixed martial arts lessons by former MMA lightweight Cody Walsh, and no one seemed to care. Miss Herman, I
regret ever setting foot in that damned house.
Beatrice said in a breathless whisper that made me fear she might hyperventilate again.
I just wanted a fresh start. I wanted a break. And just when I thought I had it, I found myself somewhere worse than where I'd started.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm what the kids call a simp. But there's something about a woman in tears that makes me fold like an omelet. What happened? I asked despite myself. Beatrice took a long while to answer, but the shimmer in her eye and the shadow dancing just beneath told the story before she could even begin.
I married a monster, Mr. Walsh.
She began.
I stayed for longer than I should have, but did, thankfully, see reason before he put me in the hospital for the last time. I started to rebuild my life with the intent of being self-sufficient, and I was. I went back to school, earned my degree, worked my ass off, the whole 9 yards. Before I knew it, I was extremely well off financially, and looking for a place to call home. I thought I was buying my dream home at the time. The house was old, needed work, but it had everything I ever wanted. Old Victorian build, gorgeous, with plenty of space for me to put the trophies of my life I'd built with my own 2 hands. The place was falling apart here and there, but it was livable. I moved in immediately with the dream of working on my home on the weekends. The nightmares started that very night, however. Horrible things. Evil things.
Tears began cascading down her face once more. She didn't need to go on. I had seen it all play out in her eyes. The images like shadow puppets against a wall bathed in scarlet light. Teenagers or kids in their 20s, convinced of their own invincibility, had entered the house after the original owner had left. Drunk on alcohol and the stupidity of youth, they tested each other's courage with increasingly dangerous dares. And one day, one of them brought the thing that would doom them all, and curse anyone else who set foot in the place. One kid, thinking himself edgy and cool, brought a Ouija board with him one night, and although the others initially dismissed the item, boredom and drugs eventually led them to use the damn thing. They would all flee the place in fear that night, and then, one by one, they would all die of mysterious causes. Whatever was in that place was now tormenting Beatrice. It had started as it did with the kids. This thing showed her visions of what it had done, of what it lived for. Countless scenes of blood, murder, and savagery had been shown to this poor woman, and the spirit was feeding off her fear until it grew strong enough to lead her to something unspeakable.
Please.
She wheezed through tears. There was a right way to approach evil. A mindset much like entering the ring on fight night. Your mind has to be clear so that your thoughts will not get in the way of your actions. Your actions must happen without hesitation, like instincts. All of these things combined create a certain aura around a person that is unmistakable. It's the look two fighters give each other before they square off. It is a challenge, a warning, and it is terrifying as hell. Like the glare of a wild animal that is resolved to kill. It was the aura that the house was giving off, and the sense that I was firing right back in its direction. I strode toward the house, pushing aside all fear. All of my senses screamed for me to turn tail and run, and I had to convince my waking mind to transform that fearful energy into anger that I could use in the upcoming moments. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I recalled the last exorcism I performed, and the months of recuperation that followed. That was the hardest fear to transform into anger. I told myself every time that this exorcism would be the last, but somehow I knew that my last exorcism would be the one that turned me into a spirit. I removed my windbreaker as I approached the front door. Window shutters in the front porch area slammed open and closed in the wind ferociously, and I saw it for what it was. The house was warning me, like a rattlesnake coiled and ready to strike. There was a sudden force of malicious pressure bleeding from the house, letting me know that I was not welcome. I pushed through the dread that was presently lighting up my nerves and making all of my hair stand on end. My intentions to use my keys to open the door were dropped in favor of landing the first strike. I kicked the front door with more force than was probably necessary and sent it flying into the darkness of the entrance hallway. The inside of the house felt as if there was a whirlwind loose within its confines. The spirit had recognized my intent and was trying to make me afraid. If it succeeded, I would lose the fight, no question. Doors flung open and closed. Floorboards creaked and groaned under the pressure of invisible footsteps. And whatever items were not bolted down levitated into the air and were tossed about to and fro as if gravity had taken the day off. I reached toward my bag and pulled from it a bottle of holy water. I unscrewed the top while dodging a bowl that flew with enough force to shatter itself and leave shards embedded in the nearest door. The house groaned loudly, announcing that the main event was about to start. I doused my hand-wrapped fists with a generous amount of holy water and braced myself. The house seemed to grow 2 different shades darker as the whirlwind of trouble ebbed. The place was suddenly too quiet for it to be any kind of normal, and my nervous system was firing on all cylinders. A shadow that was somehow darker than the rest of them moved forward from the inky backdrop. It was taller than what a normal person would be, and just shorter than what an NBA player would be. It was built like a freaking gorilla, and the house seemed to shake with each of its steps. I looked on the creature's head, looking for where its eyes might be, and found a slightly reflective pair of orbs which sparked slightly, with what I could only assume was pure, unadulterated hate. My sixth sense showed me more than I wanted to know about this thing. It was ancient. It was evil. It had been responsible for some of the most wicked and vile things to have happened on planet Earth, and it was damn proud of it. This was the reason I hated doing this job. The things that are vile enough to require an exorcism will often show you things that will make you want to slam your head into the concrete until you can't even remember your name. If there was one redeeming factor to the nightmare juice I was willingly chugging, it was that there was 0 fear left in me. The only thing that remained was anger and indignation so powerful that the only thing going through my mind was the impulse to unleash a world of hurt so big on this thing it would not only get a taste of its own medicine, but down the whole ass bottle. The thing stepped within my reach. I felt my teeth grind together, and I unleashed hell on it. In even the most brutal of fights, there is a human instinct that tells the fighter to pull back just a little. Whether they will admit it or not, it isn't human nature to willingly hurt another person. This thing, however, wasn't human, and I would pull no punches. My fist landed squarely on the thing's jaw, and I felt the solid impact of the blow like striking a hammer against a lump of soft clay. The shadow's body molded underneath the force of my strike, leaving an imprint of my fist. If the damn thing had had a visible face, I would have bet all $25 in my bank account that it looked shocked as hell. The thing fired tendrils of murky blackness in my direction, and I dodged as many as I could. The ones that I could not evade seemed to pierce right through me while leaving no physical mark. The pain they left behind was psychic in nature, like experiencing a breakup 100 times or finding out that a loved one just died. I had to grit my teeth harder to convert whatever it did to me into rage. Fear would be my end. Sadness would be my end. Rage had to be my weapon. Each one of my punches seemed to tear fragments of the shadow from it, and each subsequent punch felt like I was hitting a pillow with less and less stuffing. The end of the battle was drawing near, and I could sense the thing getting desperate. It reached inside and started showing me my top 10 greatest fumbles. Being a petty thug in my teens, making a huge scene at the family Christmas party and running away, fighting in illegal blood sports for cold hard cash, and the overdose that left me at death's door. That last one was different, however. True, under different circumstances, I might have called that rock bottom, but when I came back from the other side, I came back a changed man. I saw life differently then. I saw what I had been, the pain I caused. Also, I saw spirits, and had the ability to touch them. And it was that ability that was about to send this damn shadow straight back to hell. I let the last spark of anger I held flare into the biggest flame that I could muster. Then, with all of my remaining strength, I fired a punch directly into the shadow's head and right through it. There was a silent shriek which resonated through the house like a wild beast in the throes of death. For a minute, I thought for sure the place would collapse on me, and lacking the strength to move, I resolved myself to die. The rhythm of raindrops landing on the old roof woke me from a dreamless slumber. The rain was still falling, but the sky had cleared significantly. I struggled to my feet and stumbled through the wreckage left from the fight. The house felt still, empty. Good. I made my way to the front porch and let myself fall into a sitting position on the front step. I pulled my phone from my pocket and sent a text to Beatrice. It's done. I leaned back and felt the light of the sun beginning to peek through the clouds. Maybe there would be clear skies after all. Thank you for tuning in to this week's story, Campfire Gang. As always, please remember to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, be sure to check out the author's links in the description to see more of their work or to contact them and tell them how much you enjoyed their story. Now until next time, remember, darkness welcomes the inquiring.